Now, I may be the flow arts curator, but I love juggling. I acknowledge that flow arts and juggling blur the lines a lot when it comes to performance. You can juggle your flow props. You can spin your juggling clubs as though they're poi. They overlap in many ways. However, most of my content is centered around the idea that spinning, juggling is something you do by yourself. It's kind of about the introspective psychology and inner discipline. So I went out on a limb and I put together an article called 5 Reasons You Should Learn to Juggle, specifically to enhance your experience at music festivals. It's kind of the long version of the title. And the main theme there is that juggling is more engaging than spinning, to put it in a short way. As I went along, I realized that juggling is more engaging because it usually can involve other people. You know, people come up and say, "Oh, I can do that," or people come up and just have a slight tweak that makes it more interesting, not only for you as the person juggling, but for the viewer. It just is more accessible, I think. Anyway, I realized that you kind of hit a plateau very quickly when juggling, and so you need an outside influence. So when I started going to the Portland college called Reed College, I came across the juggling club, and that's where I first really learned to pass. I had tried it in the past, but it never really stuck with me. So there's a couple folks who are a little bit older than me, a little bit wiser, a little bit better jugglers, to be honest, and they just were so magnetic the way that they were passing. I had to learn. And once I got into it, I wanted to know a lot of the context around that art form. I wanted some stories. I wanted some tips and tricks. And so I picked the person I got along with best, which is TJ Carlson. He's a school teacher, just like I used to be, and he's really freaking good at passing with clubs. So TJ, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us, how you got into that aspect of juggling.
Thanks, Troy. So I've always been a fan of the social juggling, and that being passing. Solo stuff has been fun for me, but I never really got into it until I got into that social stuff and started passing with friends. And reason is there's all kinds of stuff. It opens new worlds. You're juggling with somebody else, so they're teaching you new tricks while you're teaching them new tricks. You can do 6 clubs, you can do 7 clubs, you can keep going 8 clubs. Sometimes I'll even try to work on 9 clubs with an emphasis on the try there. So you can pick up 3, 4, 5 other people and say, okay, let's put a pattern together. What kind of pattern do we want to do? And then it's all of you thinking, okay, I throw to you, you throw to me, I toss a double up here and you catch it over there, and got a new pattern.
Yeah, when I watch you guys going like 3 or 4 of you, I just think to myself, oh man, I don't know how you even keep them in the air. How do you even last more than one rotation of that?
And that's what makes it interesting. You come up with a really complicated pattern, you spend a half an hour trying to get it to the point where you can actually do it, and then you move on to another one.
Yeah.
Because you've figured it out, and there's no point in keep going.
Yeah, one and done.
So, but yeah, there's always more to learn. There's always more different patterns. If you're on 7 last night alone at Juggling Club at Reed, I think I did 4 different patterns that involved passing 7 clubs with another guy.
Yeah, and you didn't even break a sweat either. That's what I noticed is like you're conversational and you're just having a good time while you're doing it. Whereas exactly. I'm over here, juggling by myself, struggling to even, keep the patterns I'm working on going. Headphones in, trying super hard, and you guys have more objects than me in the air, throwing more rotations, and you're like busting each other's chops while you're doing it.
And that's what I said. It all goes back to the social aspect. For me, it's not as much fun if you're not having fun with the people you're juggling with. Just throwing, passing, enjoying the time, shooting the shit with them, and having a good time. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, it's almost like I'm part of a generation where like the ego plays a bigger role in it. Where I'm like, I've got to get ready for performances. I've got to like post a sick clip on the gram, or I've got to like level up. Whereas you're like, I'm just trying to have a good time. And then as a result of that, like you actually get better because you put less pressure on yourself.
Makes sense, yeah. I mean, one of my favorite things to do is summertime in Portland. Go hang out at a park. It stays late until 10:30 at night sometimes. There'll be 3, 4, 5, 6 of us just hanging out in a park for a few hours, passing clubs. You know, 2 of us will go for a while, 3 of us will go for a while one guy takes a break, the other 2 are juggle. Just having fun, passing.
Do you have vision
stuff.
clubs now?
I do.
Yeah, so you can actually juggle well into the night.
Oh yeah, and
That's
then
right.
so a lot of times, yeah, we'll juggle for a while in the park, go to a bar, have a beer, have some dinner for an hour or two, then it's dark, go back to a different park and throw our vision clubs around for a while.
I have a hard time passing vision clubs because they're so bright and like the strobe effects, especially like if it's just on if it's on a mellow color fade, I can handle that. But when it's on those bright strobe, like what Circus Luminescence does, I'm like, how are you throwing double and triple rotations and it's strobing? How are you catching that thing by the handle?
I find that they're so much easier to juggle when I grew up on torches.
Yeah.
Those torches in pitch black after dark, these things are hard to figure out where the handle is. Where the glow clubs, the vision props, at least the whole thing glows and
Yeah,
you can
true.
see the whole thing and you know, hey, there's the handle right there. I grabbed
Very good
it.
point.
So
Yeah, no wonder you're so good. You practice with something that's damn near impossible to catch.
did that for a while.
All right. Well, speaking of all the times you've had, let's get into these stories. Last night we were drinking an IPA and talking our way through these, and I was like side splitting, laughing my ass off. There's one in particular. I can't wait till you hit it. Do you want to maybe start with like a theme, something that ties them all together that you noticed about passing over the course of college and young adulthood?
So just passing with friends, and that's what it's all about. Passing with friends to have fun and learn some new tricks and try some new stuff and more fun.
Just having a good time. Yeah, like if it was me answering that question, it would be like, oh, like the neuroplasticity of the number of rotations and the anthropological treasure trove that is kinesthetic. It's like, no, let's just keep it simple, stupid. That's why I like getting together with people who acknowledge that we overthink things. They're like, dude, it's a 3-letter word. It's fun. Relax. Like, you right. All right. So I've got my list in front of me here. Why don't you get us started with the 7-torch juggling, where somebody busted out a camera that revealed something funny to you.
All right, so I used to juggle when I lived in D.C. with a group called the U.S. Department of Jugglers, and this was in D.C. That's where the name comes from, obviously. So one evening we were juggling torches after dark towards the end of our evening meetup, and myself and one other guy started passing 7 torches, and a friend of ours who's a professional photographer started taking pictures of it, and a few weeks later, she sends us these pictures, and there's one perfect one that had just the flames. The trail of flames was beautiful. One of the flames right at the top looked like a ribbon going around in its loop, and you could barely see the other guy or I. We're just blurs and kind of shadowy dark. But then we look in the background at the community center where we're juggling at, and in the windows, there's about a half a dozen people with their faces stuck in the windows that we didn't even know were watching us at the time. So, we said, hey, that's what happens. You start juggling, people start watching you. Even though you're doing it for yourself, it entertains everybody.
It kind of reminds me of like Paranormal Activity or something, where they go watch the found footage afterward, and they're like, oh my gosh, there was people there all along. But it's humorous, because like, especially when people watch you juggle, their expressions are priceless. So when that film developed, you guys must have been like laughing your asses off. Like, wow, I didn't even know.
Yeah.
Like, what was that moment like when you guys finally saw that picture?
It's like, oh, wait. Wow, what were they doing there?
Their faces are like pressed against the glass like a mime.
Pretty much, yeah.
Oh, man. So. I love how you nonchalantly are like, yeah, we were out there just 7 torch passing. I'm like, damn it, I struggle with 6.
That was one of the first guys I ever worked on passing 8 with, so we'd both been passing 7 for a while at that point.
So nowadays, I juggle torches. I have an LED knob at the bottom that really helps me see the other end of it.
Ah.
Yeah, from my sponsor, Flow on Fire, a little plug for them. It definitely helps illuminate the handle. I am not that good, so I need every leg up I can get. I'm trying to get a set created that has an even brighter, bigger light. But how much would it have helped you if you had a little knob that lit up and say I usually put it in bright blue or green.
Definitely would help a lot, since that's always the biggest problem, because you want to juggle torches when it's pitch black out, because it looks so much cooler. Yeah. But that's the hardest time to juggle them. Twilight, they're not too hard to juggle at twilight because you can still see what's going on, but they're still pretty impressive, but not quite as impressive. And these days, I'm not in the habit of juggling torches as much, so leads me kind of to my next story here. Up at Lopez Island, where they used to have a festival up in the San Juan Islands off of Seattle, they traditionally do fire juggling Saturday night, completely naked.
Whoa!
So I joined that one time.
Like traditionally,
3-4
meaning
years.
like it just developed, or like it's an actual like cultural tradition?
Traditionally, as in tradition for that festival,
Okay.
is that a bunch of people juggle fire naked at night while people are hanging around a bonfire. That was a fun festival. Everybody camped out and just hung out, very communal.
Literally
shared
hung
food. Literally hung out Saturday night. But yeah, that one, I hadn't juggled torches for about 5 years when I did that, and man, it was hard. I had to remember.
It was hard. Oh my gosh.
This is a hard thing to do this time of night, juggling these torches. No, it was too cold out for that to be very hard, though.
So, like, how do you juggle naked with another man without your peripherals, like, kind of screwing you over?
Well,
you know, wobble in action.
You gotta pay attention to the torches. Make sure you keep your eyes on the right stick.
It's like, whoa, hey, buddy, my eyes are up here. Oh my god.
It's dark enough. You can't see too much anyway.
In a way, I kind of envy, like, nudist colonies. I always have had a thing against, like, censorship. I'm like, what would it be like if we all were just relaxed? Because, like, I'm not embarrassed or proud. I'm just, like, neutral about my own body. You know what I mean? I'm like, if everyone else felt that way, imagine, like, the people who are ashamed, it would, like, bring them up. Because they'd be like, oh, yeah, you know, I'm not that different from the other person. And the person who's super proud and has a big ego, it would kind of bring them down to an appropriate level. Because they'd be like, I kind of like the same as, you know, the average person. So I listened to Dan Holzman's podcast, Drop Everything, the IJA podcast. And there was a guy who kind of got, like, coerced into doing a naked juggling performance. And what happened was he showed up to the event naked, and everybody else was wearing clothes, and he didn't even want to get naked. Like, it took a lot of convincing, and he's like, dang it. And then, like, as soon as the show started, everyone else got naked and then sat down. So he was like, oh, thank God. But, like, imagine, like, how terrible that would feel if you were the only one.
Sounds like that dream that everybody has when you show up at work naked. And it's like,
literally, yeah.
Oh crap.
So, yeah, but he's like, you know, I never really realized this, but there's a lot of bouncing around, you know, with juggling, and it just wasn't comfortable for me. He's like, and then it was kind of quiet for a second, and they both go, yeah, I imagine pirouettes were especially bad. And he's like, yeah, that pirouettes were the worst. So, Lopez.
Mid-September.
Okay, so yeah, it was, especially if it was rainy. Whew.
It's in the rain shadow, so they don't get a lot of rain there.
Oh, no kidding. Okay.
Yep.
I'll allow it. All right, so the first one we had was 7-torch juggling, clothed, civilian. Second one was nude juggling at a festival. Why don't you tell us about juggling in college? That's a fun one.
All right, so few stories there. This is where I really learned to juggle, and one of my best friends here in town, a woman named Karen, actually went to college with me, and she was the one who dragged me to my first juggling meetup, the juggling club there at University of Illinois. So, a few different things. We used to have a lot of fun. One guy and I, this guy Scott that I used to juggle with, whenever we'd have a stressful day, we'd call each other and say, hey, let's go. Get a 6-pack. So we'd get a 6-pack and we'd start juggling, not the 6-pack. We'd juggle clubs every time we drop, and we drop from passing, take a drink from the 6-pack. So as you can imagine, at the beginning we'd be juggling pretty well. We'd be doing some good stuff, and it would go for a while. And then as we started dropping, we'd drop more and more for some reason. And half an hour, 45 minutes into this, as we finished off the six-pack, it was usually getting pretty ugly. But, a lot of fun. And I guess that kind of limited us to our drinking because we didn't have a 12-pack. We only made sure we stayed with the six-pack. So that one was always a lot of fun. Then, since it was college and drinking and juggling often go together in college and other places as well, brings us to Friday afternoons. Bunch of us would hang out on the quad every Friday afternoon and just juggle all afternoon, and usually someone would bring what we called quad Coke. That would be a 2-liter bottle of Coke that had about 2 inches left of Coke in it, and then filled with whatever hard liquor that person happened to have in their kitchen at the time. Just enough Coke to make it look enough like Coke that it worked for any security officers, cops, whatever, passing by, and we could get away with it.
Surely that's not 2 liters of bourbon.
Sometimes. It just, rum was a little bit more common than bourbon, but, whatever you happen to come across.
That's what the security officer was thinking. He's like, there's no way that it's all rum in there. There's no way. It might be a little bit, but surely the ratio is acceptable for a group of friends. Nope, it was 9-1 rum to Coke.
And, that was the other thing. The security officers, they'd see us, we'd juggle our torches on the quad too sometimes, and they'd look at us, and sometimes we'd literally watch them walk by us and kind of have that look on their face. Yeah, they must have permission to be doing that. They wouldn't be doing that otherwise. So the one night, towards the beginning of the school year, 3 of us are juggling. 2 of us decide to start passing torches as it gets really dark out. Few other guys come up and they're like, hey, you mind if we watch? We're like, yeah, whatever, we're out on the quad, go ahead. So we're juggling torches, and if you don't know torches, you can see about 5 feet around you. That's about it, because the glow of the torches, everything else is dark. Yeah, you're in a bubble. So me and this other guy were juggling these torches, just bullshitting with each other, having a good time. Fuel lasts about 5-7 minutes. Fuel goes out. We look around. There's about 75 people around us. Where do all of those people come from? And we're just enclosed in this circle of people. We're like, okay, I think we're going to leave now.
That's what we call organic growth.
It was organic something that night.
Should have put a hat out.
Should have. So
what I like about that, too, is like college campuses are kind of a natural breeding ground for these curious, either young or like resourceful or just curious, people. They're like, I know something's happening somewhere. And they kind of tootle about, nowadays they're on their phones. Back then, maybe they were reading, just kind of relaxing. And there's like a buzz will always happen, whether it's a protest or some sort of demonstration. In my college, it would have been like usually something more artistic. So you were that, and you weren't paid to be there, and it wasn't convoluted. It was 2 people doing what they loved, which happens to be an activity that's really fun to watch.
Yeah, that's the best part about juggling is you're entertaining yourselves more than you're entertaining the other people, but you're definitely entertaining anybody else who's around you.
Yeah, and then you always get the people who walk up, I could do that. And then it gets really fun once you get a little bit of audience engagement, where either they try to juggle or you just let them throw it to you. It's like, look, it's not that hard. You could learn it. That's one of my favorite takeaways of a public juggling session, especially with kids, because they think they can do it and they can sort of, but adults have that sort of trepidation. And if you can break that 4th wall to interact with them and then break down their own wall of self-doubt, you can really kind of go home that night feeling like, wow, not only did I work on myself, but I kind of spread confidence to a random person.
I definitely taught juggling in parks plenty of Saturday afternoons that I intended to go out and just juggle by myself, and ended up finding someone who's like, hey, can I try that? Sure, here, let me show you.
Do you always have them just start with 1 or 2?
Usually, yeah, 1 ball, toss it back and forth, get a little feel, few minutes, or few seconds, and then put in 2. Once you got 2 down regular, move up to 3.
Have you had somebody start with 1 or 2 and then work their way up to 3 and just learn to juggle in front of you?
Yeah, I've seen people that have made it all that way. I mean, usually, it takes 15 minutes or so. We often go to OMSI. They do OMSI After Dark, which is an adult-type night at OMSI on once a month. And they often invite us once or twice a year to come and teach juggling. We often end up teaching a few people the basics there.
I've seen that at Renaissance fairs, and I was always like, is it kind of a novelty? Like, people just do it because they're like, oh, it's funny. Like, you know, jesters from back in the day from Renaissance fairs, they used to have this wonky skill. Or is it like, no, legitimately, it's an ongoing class for the entire day that people walk up and learn all day?
Pretty much, yeah. We'll teach all day long, and that's what we're there for.
That's what's up,
It's usually a booth. Yeah.
That's a fun booth, especially if you get, like, if you have a good ratio of people who are genuinely interested and willing to bend over and pick up the objects enough times.
Yeah.
It's, like, pretty enjoyable.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so the 5 stories. So far we covered the surprise photography, the naked juggling, drinking Coke in the quad, or a 6-pack in the quad. Let's get to the next one. You traveled out to the East Coast. Why don't you tell us about that?
Actually, I thought we were going to talk about Florence first.
Oh, well,
Right, yeah.
whichever.
Let's talk about that.
Let's talk about Florence. Okay.
So yeah, you were asking me about, I should have put a hat down.
I
So
did. Always put a hat down, right?
This is the only time I've ever actually had a hat put down
Okay.
and gotten some money. So, still college time. I was traveling. I sang in the Glee Club in college as well, and we were touring Europe, singing in some really cool places. There were about 60 of us on tour.
That's awesome.
We're in Florence at this point, and we're waiting around for our bus. There's probably 50 or so of us there at this point, and some of my friends start busting my chops because there's 2 guys across the street juggling and busking and
Like,
got their hat down.
Florence, I'm imagining, like, wine country.
It's big city, wine country out in the outside of it, but big city, think really old city.
So kind of like a London vibe.
Kinda, yeah.
Okay.
So these 2 guys across the street are juggling. My friend's busting my chops about, hey, you should go join them. Oh, no, you couldn't do that. I'm like, okay, whatever. So I walk across the street, say, hey, mind if I juggle with you for a little while? I'm like, yeah, sure, why not? So we start passing clubs, and we're just having fun. Again, we're just shooting the shit. These guys spoke English, fortunately, so I was able to talk, hang out, have a good time, and they've already got their hat down. All my buddies come across the street and watching, so that's 50 guys all there, and next thing we know, there's 150 or so people standing around watching us. We juggled for 10 or 15 minutes. At the end of the time, he looks down at his hat. He's like, I've been here for 3 hours. I was about to leave when you walked across the street. I just made more in the last 15 minutes than I did in that whole 3 hours. Handed me a bunch of cash and said, thanks, man.
That's the craziest part, is that he actually paid you out.
Yeah.
You kind of like stood there for a second, accepted the money, like, I guess this wasn't even my goal.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, I'll take
My
a few
goal
euros.
was to prove my buddies wrong who were busting my balls about, why don't you get over there and do it? It's like, fine. You wind up getting paid.
Yeah, it was a good time. So
Now, do Italians juggle differently or have different props?
No, at least these guys were just juggling clubs, passing clubs.
So it's kind of cool to think about. It's like a universal language. If you once you learn passing, the simple I do 1 2 3 toss, 1 2 3 toss. Once you learn that pattern, it's kind of like you can communicate with anyone, even if you don't speak their language.
Kinda, yeah, because most of the tricks will work into that basic pattern. So start throwing tricks, they'll start throwing tricks. Even if you don't understand each other's language, you can still teach each other tricks by just watching what the other one's doing.
Dude, that's funny. I might even like save one of those dollars that I earned if I was in your position and never actually spend it. Just put it on the wall, like my first dollar I ever earned, doing what I love, or something like that.
Yeah.
Kind of a cool sentimental thing.
Unfortunately, I didn't, but maybe next time.
You probably spent it on beer.
Probably, most likely. I was in Italy, so maybe spent it on wine instead
Yep.
of beer.
A
But
little bit of wine.
We'll go there.
I'll give you a little bit of cultural credit, I guess. All right. So far we covered 7 torch juggling, want crazy photos showing up, naked juggling, juggling at college, juggling for college abroad, and finally, you traveled to the East Coast. Now this story, at first I thought you were making it up, and then I thought it was real, and then I thought you were making it up again because I'm like, it's dangerous, it's sexy, it was unplanned, and it takes a lot of skill. Run us through that one.
Okay, so this is, again, when I was out in D.C. This actually was with the same guy, the 7 Torches story.
Oh, nice.
So,
What's this guy's name? We gotta get a name.
Honestly, it's been almost 20 years, and I've forgotten his
Oh my
name at
gosh,
this point.
TJ.
Sorry, it's been
man.
too long. But
Poor
anyway,
guy.
I'll get you the picture, though, from the Torches.
He's like pulling his hair out right now listening to this podcast across
Yeah,
the country.
I
Like,
would
how could
be.
you forget, TJ?
Yep. So anyway, the DC festival is called the Congress of Jugglers. I believe it's still going on. Last time I was there was 2007. And
Washington, D.C., right?
Yes, Washington, D.C. This was probably 2004, 2005. The Saturday night show at the Congress of Jugglers isn't quite as professional as the one we put on here at Reed. It's just a couple of guys who are emceeing it, go around during the day on Saturday and say, hey, who wants to be in a show? What do you want to do? Give us an act. So my buddy comes up to me and says, hey, let's do an act on the show tonight. I said, oh, okay, sounds good. Let's do it. What do you have in mind? I don't know. Mind you, this is Saturday morning, and he wants to go on stage Saturday night. So the two of us and another friend go outside, and we just start talking, trying to figure out what we're going to do. And we decide, well, let's make our finale first. Might as well start with the finale. And we decide, well, let's juggle some knives for our finale. Okay, fine. So that's not quite enough. We decide we need to put some good comedy into this show. So we decide, let's do this whole show in tinfoil skirts and nothing else. Oh, wait, except since we wanted comedy and we wanted some good banter, we needed microphones and we didn't know how else to connect them to ourselves. So we'll duct tape the microphones to our chest and have microphones and tinfoil skirts.
Are you talking like the old school, like a microphone you normally hold with your hand, or like a lapel mic?
No, like a lapel mic. Just
okay.
Duct tape to the chest, and then the box or whatever you call it hooked onto the tinfoil skirt.
Clip on the foil skirt.
So yeah, so we walk in, start out our act. We've each got 3 clubs in our hand. Walk in from either side of the stage. Walk up to the front. Act like we're about to start passing. Start each juggling just 3 clubs in sync, standing and turn and face the audience. Then we start the banter of, and everybody's busting up laughing because the only person in the audience who had any clue this was coming was the woman who helped us come up with the act. And so we're just juggling our clubs and doing the banter of, hey, do we have to do anything else? No, this is good. Just keep juggling. And eventually we're like, okay, we got to do something else. So we start passing. Then we pull up a friend onto stage, and this happened to be the woman that he was dating. I don't know if he ever got another date with her again. I couldn't bring myself to ask him after that night. But bring her up on stage, and we start passing around her, the old trick where the two of us are passing. She's standing in between with her shoulders facing either of us. My clubs are going behind her. His are going in front of her. And another friend of ours walks in from backstage and starts hitting her ponytail every time one of my clubs goes past. And then, he quickly walks off stage. Then we make sure we drop after he's out of sight. And she turns around quick and looks, and nobody's there. And everybody in the audience gets the joke. And, good vaudeville type act going on. Then we decide to pull out the knives and put a pretzel in her mouth to cut it out. So we're about to juggle.
Like a rod pretzel, not like a curled one.
Yeah, like cigar length type thing. Yeah, nothing too bad. So then, we're about to juggle the knives and said, oh, wait. We should do this with a blindfold. And the other guy says, oh, yeah, that's a good idea. He goes off stage. Somebody hands him a blindfold. He starts putting the blindfold on. No, for her. Oh, yeah, that's probably even a better idea. Yeah. And, of course, the blindfold's really there for her safety because if she does happen to flinch while we're doing this, there's a knife coming across the back of her head at the same time.
Yeah, luckily there's a thin layer of fabric to protect her from that nice, large knife.
Yeah, So then we go juggle the knives, cut the pretzel out of her mouth, and that was that act. And that was one of the few times I've actually performed.
Yeah, that's such a ridiculous act because, compared to me where I, work my ass off for months and I, try to choreograph and get the outfit and get the drops and the acrobatics and get this just right and to get the look just right. And you're like, yeah, I went to a festival to juggle, decided I was going to perform the day of, and freaking killed.
So, next time you want to do an act with me, maybe Renegade show next year?
Yes.
I think we've got an act for Renegade show next year.
I've got some heavy-duty aluminum foil.
Heavy duty? Now that would have been a good idea. Maybe that wouldn't have split up the side while I was doing the act.
Hey, at least you had that duct tape on you. So, were you wearing nothing underneath?
I actually had boxer shorts on, but they didn't show.
Yeah, I was going to say, that would be what we call an unnecessary risk.
Oh, it also added, a great thing once one of us dropped, trying to pick up and, making a great show of that, trying not to rip your tinfoil skirt while you're picking up a club.
Well, just don't drop.
Well, I know, but that was part of the joke.
Yeah, oh yeah, true.
You got to drop on purpose in that case just to have the act of picking up the club.
Yeah, dude, Renegade shows are so fun because, like, as the audience member, you can kind of heckle, you feel more relaxed. You're not, like, sad by it. You're like, oh, man, this person's so epic. I'm only going to see him once. You're like, this guy's like a goofy ass. Like, look at this wacky guy. He's probably been drinking beers, smoking all day. Like,
drinking beer if they were on the light stuff.
Yeah. And also what's funny about that is, like, the audience participation, even though it was a crowd plant, like, that person still was roped into it that day and has no agency over its success. So she just has to, like, yeah, she's, like, quote, participating, but she's not, like, affecting it. Like, if you guys had gotten drunk between the rehearsal, or if, like, you did have stage fright, you still could poke her eye out.
Yeah, but this wasn't a Renegade show, and we weren't drunk, and...
Oh, it wasn't a Renegade show?
No, this was just a regular show, and we weren't drunk, and she wasn't drinking, and she didn't even know it was coming.
Oh my gosh.
There wasn't a rehearsal. She was just called up on stage and didn't have any clue what was coming.
Was she a fellow juggler?
No.
Oh, God. Oh, yeah, it was the guy's date.
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh. At least it was engaging. You know, I hate to go on a date with someone and just, like, watch a movie, and you're like, wow, that other man did a good job acting. And you go out to eat, and it's like, well, that other cook did a good job. I'd rather, like, play a game or, you know, talk or cook something myself, so at least it's engaging. Yeah. And that's just kind of the general theme of all of this, is that passing with another friend, with performing and passing, it's just so engaging. You're using every muscle in your body. You're using all your brain. It's fun. It's goofy. It is a little risky. And then as we learned from the first couple stories about photography, especially not burning yourself, like, there is, like, some risk and reward to it. You know, just because a lot of my videos are going to be about flowing yourself. It's just you and your own discipline. Maybe you're performing other people, but it's just you getting the job done. This really balances out the whole flow arts, what's the word? Like, inflated ego sort of problem. I feel like it really equalizes and it makes it more social.
It does, and as far as equalizing, you can take the best passer out there and put them with a novice, and they're still going to have fun.
Yeah.
And that's where it's all at.
I think we know where I lie on that spectrum.
I don't necessarily just seek out the best passers to pass with. I seek out anybody because I just want to have some fun and see what they can do and maybe teach them something. I'll probably learn something too.
Man, that is so refreshing. You know, that's a good note to end on. There you have it, folks. Even the most experienced passer, they can learn a trick or they can learn a new joke. You name it. Go pass with somebody who's better than you. Go pass with somebody who's worse than you. And don't always do it by yourself. TJ, do you have any final comments on summarizing these stories and just plugging it into a flow arts kind of world?
Hey, it's all about fun. Friends and fun.
There you have it, folks.